Okay, I'm here with Cassandra Arias, and she is a mother of three children and in divine union with her partner of 18 years. She specializes in womb health, herbalism, herbal medicine making, womb astrology, and somatic womb healing with the assistance of ceremonial womb steaming. Over the last decade, Cassandra has been in service to hundreds of women globally through womb healing ceremonies, mentorship, trainings, retreats, and building her own school of mysteries, the Pythia Priestess Academy. She is forever a humble student of the rose lineage, a guardian of the earth, and the feminine spiritual path. And I love
Yay.
that you're known as Eternal Womb also. It's such a deep,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. That name came to me through the symbol of the Ankh, with the Ankh
Mm,
representing eternal life, but also the womb. If we look at the
yeah.
Ankh and how it looks, and it's like has the uterus and like the ovaries, and then the cervix and the vaginal canal. It's just so it was just felt so appropriate.
Yes, I love that you're a mama of three doing this priestess work. So
Thank
it's such an
you.
honor to have you here to
Thank you
speak
so much for
about
having me. Congrats on this offering. It sounds so beautiful and divine, so needed.
this. So we're gonna talk about Lilith, huh? Lilith,
Yes,
Serpent.
yes, yes. I love her so much. I'm excited.
Would you be able to start us off with, actually, I'm going to read this that I pulled from your
Awesome.
website because it was very powerful.
Mm,
So, Lilith's legacy is an ancient one that cannot be ignored. She is the symbol of liberation in all its forms, our first dark mother who sets us free from bondage. Before Eve, there was Lilith, her lineage stemming from Sumer in Mesopotamia with her connection to Inanna.
mm. Yes, thank you so much for reading that. So, Lilith, well, she came to me. I feel like she came to me very young. I grew up in a very religious household, and um, Lilith, her story specifically came through with the Adam and Eve, and I feel like so many people know the Adam and Eve story. So we'll start there.
Yeah.
So the story goes with Adam and Eve. So Adam was the original man made from God, Yahweh or Jehovah. And it said that God, Yahweh, created Eve through his rib. So that's like what we usually hear in Genesis is that Eve came from Adam. But there's also earlier in Genesis where it speaks to God creating both man and woman from the same image of himself. And that other person would be Lilith.
Okay.
And so what I've discovered is that Lilith was actually Adam's first wife. So she came before Eve, and Lilith was like I said, was also came from the same dirt, like the same earth as Adam. So they were equals, just how we have the feminine, masculine polarity or principles. It was said that these two individuals held that. And so the story goes with Lilith and Adam that Lilith wanted to really to be his equal, and Adam was having a hard time with that. And there's even a story that goes into her wanting to be on top during making love, and he was like, "No, you need to be below me." And so she was like, "Well, I'm leaving." And I feel like if, that story is rings to be true, it's so much more than that, probably. If we think of, we never know what goes on in a marriage, and it probably was like the last straw, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so she decided to leave the Garden of Eden. She was just fed up and
Mm.
wasn't, fully receiving, I feel like, from her partner what she was desiring. And so when she left, they tried to bring her back.
Hmm.
These three angels went to go get her back because Adam was complaining to God and was saying, "The wife you gave me, she's not, doing what she's supposed to." And he's like, "Okay, well, I'll try to get her back." And he sent these angels to go get her. And she said, "No, I'm not coming back." And they tried to threaten her that they would kill her. But she told these angels, she's like, "You cannot kill me. I am a primordial force of nature." And so she's like that primal force of creation of the holy fire. And so they're like, "Oh, you're right. Like we can't kill you because that would just throw everything into chaos. Can't destroy, the creation, the primordial force of creation." And so they told her instead what she would have to do is allow 100 of her babies die
Wow.
every day. And so Lilith, because she is that primordial force of creation, she's able to create life without a seed, without
Mhm.
Adam. And so she agreed to that, that she would do that and she would stay out of the garden. And so that happened. That's when Eve was said to be created from Adam's rib this time. So she was more of this maiden energy,
Mhm.
supposedly naive. They like to portray Eve as this woman that just didn't know what she was doing and, was the reason why they got thrown out of the Garden of Eden. And so the story goes is Lilith returned back as a serpent
Serpent. Mm.
to awaken Eve and to eat from the tree of life. So
Mhm.
within the Garden of Eden, God said, you can eat from any tree, any plant, any animal. I give you everything, but you can't eat from this tree of good and there's different names, good and evil, tree of life, tree of wisdom, tree of knowledge. Um, and Eve came back and told Eve, she's like, you need to eat from this tree to essentially awaken to the mysteries, to your power. And of course, that's not how it's written in the Bible. But so she eats from this tree, and the apple specifically, and the apple, is associated a lot with um, divination and oracular nature and the feminine mysteries and menstruation. And so she bites this apple and she awakens to her power. It said that she even got her first bleed, and
Wow.
like the veil over her eyes was lifted. And so she told Adam, like, come eat from this tree. And so it makes me chuckle a little bit because it's like, oh, he finally listened to eat, like to his wife. Like he's like, all right, I'll come, I'll do it. And he eats from it.
Mm.
And that's when he's also awakened. And it said that at that moment they realized they were naked and all of like
Mm.
started to put clothes on and the sin was created. And it said that God was upset. And so he casted them out of the garden. But also he made it known that because of Eve, all women would have to experience painful childbirth. All women would desire their husbands, but they wouldn't necessarily desire them and that there was one more. It'll come back to me, but those two things, and yeah, so women were seen as Eves, and this story stems from Judaism and like early Christianity, and I think of the Christianity that was not really rooted in Yeshua's teachings is more something that was more patriarchal. It's a very patriarchal religions like Christianity, Judaism, and Islamic religion. And before that, there was the reign of the goddess and her religion, and the womb, the mysteries, the priestess, the oracles. And so it's so interesting to think of Lilith. She went through um, her own experience of being almost like discarded by God and like it said like she was like the fallen daughter, the daughter that was just really wounded by her father. And then she has to grow through this experience of sacrifice and reclamation of who she is, which is primordial mother, queen of heaven, this primal force of creation, the holy fire. And it said there was a moment when she finally really realizes like even fully to the capacity of who she is, and she's standing at the gates of Eden, and she there the holy fire is like coming. It's right, I believe Archangel Michael was standing there and the fire was around him, and she's realizing that she is that fire, that she is that
Mhm.
primordial force of creation, and like she's fully reclaimed the full totality of who she is, which is the maiden mother crone within her own self. And it said that eventually she sits beside God as his consort, which I believe it said that actually, when we look back in history, at least 3,000 years ago, it was actually the Queen of Heaven that was the goddess came before God, and it was actually God who sat next to her because she was
Wow.
the one that, because
Lilith is a goddess.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, so she's a goddess. She's a little bit of everything. She's a goddess. She was a woman. She was a primordial force of creation
Yeah.
and an archetype, well, she had her own priestesses, right? And so this is when we can look at Sumer,
Mm,
Mesopotamia, and so we see her name earliest in history in the text of Gilgamesh, and this was an ancient text, and it talks about Lilith living in a tree where Inanna is tending to this tree, and she loves this tree, and she goes to finally sit under it, and Lilith is there, and she's upset because Lilith won't leave. And she calls over her consort to take care of it to get Lilith out. So there's that story, but there's also possibility that she was Inanna herself.
mm,
Her name actually refers to a wind spirit or a wind goddess or air. There's like Lilith, Lilitu, Lilu, um, different ways you can say her name. And yeah, so it's super interesting with, I feel like her story has really gone on for many thousands of years, stemming from like Sumir. And then it's interesting, I was thinking about this today, how she's then showed up in like Christian Judaism,
mm,
Islamic um, religion, and how that story of her being the first wife, and it's almost like she's like that representation, like they couldn't erase the goddess. They couldn't erase the archetype of the feminine or the principle. So they had to put her in somewhere. So they put her in there to represent this like outrageous, whorish woman. Um, and yet her just being there in the story is like, hey, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere, even if I'm being thrown against the wolf, throwing being thrown to the wolves. I'm here to be a symbol of the remembrance. Uh,
mm,
so, Lilith often comes when we need her to remind us of who we are, also what is deeply hidden within our subconscious that's ready to be integrated. And
mm,
so she comes during, dark nights of the soul or reclamation. She has been a symbol for feminists as well during the feminist movement, like Lilith has also been called a demon.
mm.
Again, by these patriarchal religions, she was seen as a demon. And often, they would have to exorcise Lilith from women. Like, for example, with Mary Magdalene,
Yeah.
there was the story of Yeshua exorcising Lilith from Mary Magdalene, like, or the seven sins, which was like Lilith.
Oh, exercising Lilith from Mary Magdalene. Yeah, I was gonna say I was feeling like their stories are so connected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And so there's that. And yeah, I guess I'll stop there if you have any questions or yeah.
No, you're such an oracle because I was gonna say what happens when we start to connect with Lilith. I kind of know because I've started connecting with her in December, and that's actually how I found you.
Mm.
And I felt her very strongly last night. Yesterday, I just felt her energy kind of just like burning away, and a lot of this anger towards the masculine and just anger towards that energy of like being a good girl and having to be respectful.
Mm.
Something doesn't feel like in full embodiment or alignment. And my past self would have been like um being in that good girl energy, but
Mhm.
there was just like fire coming through and I felt Lilith and she was just like, no, no, no. And
Mhm.
yeah. Also in
Yeah.
my luteal phase, but yeah, I was ready to burn some bridges last night.
Love that. I love that you attuned to the fire because I feel like not many people associate her with the fire element or even just like this. Well, maybe so with her like rage, right? That she feels, but also like deep sorrow that she experiences, like
Yes.
the array of
Yeah, the
emotions.
grief was coming through too. I was crying a lot.
Yeah, the grief that she's experienced, and really her journey is like the heroine's journey, going from, death to rebirth. And she's such a beautiful guide for that, to guide us when we're having such difficult times. And she doesn't ask for much. All she asks is for devotion. You don't even need elaborate altars to work with her. She all she wants is like to have communication and for us to know that she's there for us. And truly the biggest thing that she could ask for is for us to just be true to our path and to be of service to this remembering. And I feel, Mary Magdalene, her energy is so strong right now in the collective. And within Mary Magdalene is Lilith, and it's like the primordial just fire that runs through Mary Magdalene. And, because like you said, the lineage of Lilith, right? And it could be said that like the lineage of Lilith is I said it came from like Inanna, possibly starting there, and then seeing it trickle down into like Egypt, possibly with Isis and Hathor.
Hmm.
And then, it said Mary Magdalene was a priestess of Aset, of Isis. And so, there's all these lineages are so intertwined, even around the world. The archetype of the goddess is there if we look in each culture, like all of their cosmological stories start with the feminine or the goddess being the one to create all life. And to me, Lilith is that representation of that, and often she gets put in a box of like, just the sexually like reached out to her for the sexual liberation. And yes, that's a bit part of her, but there's so much more, with her being in connection as the Queen of Heaven. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, I really feel her in the realms of the womb, like for women that have lost or had
Mm,
abortions or pregnancy loss. Have you
yeah.
connected to her in that way of like she comes in to support women that have been initiated into that rite of passage of the womb?
Absolutely. I feel she comes for various reasons, but we can look to Lilith specifically if we look at like our birthing chart, we can look at our Black Moon Lilith
Oh, yeah.
and
I wanted to talk about this. Yeah.
yeah, and see where she's landing in our chart to see where we need some healing within our own womb. And often she's connected to so this Black Moon is connected to the dark. It's not as specifically there's four different Liliths in our chart we can look at, but mostly a lot of astrologers look at the Black Moon Lilith, which is um, the mean of Lilith, which means so it's connected to the darkest part of the moon of so
Mm-hmm.
the darkest part from the moon in relation to the earth. It's called the apogee. And so this darkest part of the moon in relation to our Earth, so it's often connected. So this mean of Lilith is connected to the deepest, darkest subconscious part. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, think about it. It's like the moon's already like this subconscious, unconscious. But if we look at the darkest part of the moon, that goes even further deeper. So this, when we can look at Lilith in this way as the deepest part within our own matriarchal lineages that we've been wounded. And a lot of that times with our experience as the feminine, there's deep wounding that goes back thousands of years because of the fall of the feminine and the goddess. And so we can look at this in our own chart, see what house it's in, see if there's any planets nearby, any aspects, to see where there's some deep healing that needs to happen surrounding our own feminine energy, our wombs. Sometimes miscarriages can come up here or any womb ailments as well. There's different places in the chart you can look regarding the womb, but this is one place that I do look, and in relation to our connection to the masculine too. So we can definitely look there to see where we need some healing in our own lives and
About
liberation.
yeah, my Black Moon Lilith is in Taurus. Do you know just like
Mm.
any themes that come up? I'm just curious. And
Yeah, so we can just think of the archetype of Taurus, right? And so I would maybe ask you, like within your own Taurus energy of like the Venus, right, of Earth, like very Venusian,
beauty, comfort,
what
luxury,
all the things, right,
food.
that just are so yummy of being human, right? And the goddess, where in your own experience of this energy do you feel there's blocks or suppression, where you feel fear rise up in expressing this Taurus energy, which, would make sense even just on a global scale of the feminine, of feeling the blocks there because
Yeah,
of being afraid
sacral.
of witch wounds, showing up as a priestess or an oracle, all
Yes,
these things.
definitely. all
Mm-hmm.
of that and sacred sexuality, which is why I'm doing
Yes.
a project of the archetype of the siren who was also demonized like Lilith, because the
Mm-hmm.
siren is a woman in her power who's connected to her womb and her voice.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been, yeah, akin to luring sailors to their death, which is the
Yeah.
same distortion.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I'm just started watching this show called The Siren on Netflix.
yes, I've talked about it in 3 conversations, so
Oh,
everyone
funny.
watch it. Siren with the beautiful, like she turns into human.
Um,
Yeah, show.
Yeah. Yeah. Some just made me think of that. But yeah, so, those are often, if you look at the energy of Taurus or whatever it is, sign it is, and then look at the house, depending on what house you have it in, will
Oh,
also depend the themes, right?
wow. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll definitely
Yeah.
get into that.
hmm
Oh,
And just to speak to that right now, too, as far as the current transit, it's in Scorpio.
I was gonna
And
say Scorpio.
so she feels good in Scorpio, because Lilith is connected to, the dark goddess too. She is the unseen, the fertility of the darkness of the void, the dark fertile soil, right? And so she's often connected to that archetype of the dark goddess. And Scorpio, is all about the occult and the
Mhm.
mysteries. And I mean, that's so much of Lilith and connected to the holy waters too, as well, like to the deep depth of the waters. And connected also to addiction and money and things like that too. So, I feel like where we are at right now, collectively, if we look at the transits, I mean, a lot's going on. We have a big one here with Gemini and going into Uranus, or Uranus going to Gemini, and this being a time of historically of war. And like with Lilith being here, also at this time of like really trying to help us collectively to wake up to our true spirituality, that we don't need any medium in between us to connect to God or to goddess. We are a reflection of them, and we have them in our hearts and our bodies. And I feel like she's here to awaken the collective to connect to that, and also to show us where we are still wounded collectively, how we're still repeating the same patterns too.
Yeah. Would you say that Lilith in relationships that she'll tend to show up and kind of be like ready to burn a bridge, but it doesn't necessarily mean like you have to burn that bridge, but it's like there just needs to be some changes to be made?
Yeah, I think if there's, a harsh aspect, or, there's something that's, yeah, absolutely. I think for sure, she'll come in to help us to shake things up and to help us see the things that maybe we have rose-colored glasses over our eyes, or we're, you know, um, within our own self. How are we maybe being hurtful as well?
Mhm.
So it can go either way.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
love that. I can feel her love as you're channeling
Mm.
her energy too. I'm like, oh, she's really loving. Like a
She
fierce
is.
mama.
She truly is, and she's so loving. And yeah, I've been feeling her in relations to, yes, that fire, but also the water of like the primordial waters of creation, and her really bringing in. I mean, think about all the just the compassion she had to have, like, and not that she maybe forgave, but just the ability to not be so vengeful, and to see. And I see her, we can see her as a reflection of Yeshua, or any form of, you know Messiah that had to sacrifice their life in some shape or form to create a story or a memory of what it is they did it for. And, hers is such a profound one, with having to sacrifice her whole identity of being this force of creation,
Mm,
and having to sacrifice her children, that she loved, and, a school of thought could be like, we are her children, right? And so being hurt by her own children, and being in so much fear of her being a demon, how hurtful that must feel for her. So yeah, she's so loving.
yeah, she's here to awaken.
Hmm.
I want to ask, can you share more about Lilith and the Serpent Priestess path and what that
Mm.
looks like?
Yeah, with Lilith. coming back as the serpent to awaken Eve. The serpent for millennia has been a symbol of awakening,
Mm.
rebirth, and death, of the feminine, as we ourselves as women bleed and shed each month and have our own little mini deaths each month and rebirths. The serpent has been long in connection as a symbol of protection. Often you'll see some sort of symbol of the serpent or snake in front of temples as guardians at sacred sites. The serpent is also in connection with the oracle, and we often hear serpentine lines, or these almost like blood vessels of the earth, that or these powerful lines on the earth that have a accumulation of powerful energy that often temples are upon to connect to that energy around the world. And so, when I think of Lilith and the serpent, I think of her as the great awakener to all of these things, and so very much like Lilith, serpents, snakes, pythons, there's so much fear around them, which makes sense. They can be scary, they are to be respected, Um, I've lived with snakes for since as long as I've been with my hubby now, and I worked with a woman. I think back now, I worked for this woman who was a breeder of snakes.
Wow.
This was before I got on my path. And I was like taking snakes out of their terrariums and like taking them out and like in full
Wow.
respect and like holy shit, what am I doing here? But I was trying to make money at the time. But looking back now, it was like 40 snakes I was in charge of. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, at the time, I didn't realize like that was such an initiation with my work in the future. But they are to be respected, and they will bite you if they want to. But also, I have worked, and our pet snakes are so sweet and so gentle, and often fear us too, And so, if we look back to different stories of the serpent and even the dragons, there's often a relation with the serpents and the dragons as being forces of creation. A lot of creation stories around the world are in relation to serpents and dragons, and they've also been demonized, or, think of the knights slaying the dragons, or the story of Pythia, oracles of Delphi, and the slaying of the python, to regain access to the oracles of, of,
Wow.
of the python, right? And to sit and serve Apollo. And so, it goes so deep, and I love the connection with serpents and all of the things that I love, which is like the oracle arts,
Mhm.
the priestess path, and really reclamation of what's been suppressed. Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Pythia is connected to the Python. I never put that together.
Yes, yes. So, the story goes that there was Pythia and Python, and they were both the daughter of Gaia, or Mother Earth. And Apollo came and slayed the Python and took the oracle as his own oracle, which Apollo has a record of. He likes to make oracles. And then like he did that with Cassandra, which is my name, which I think
Ah,
super fascinating.
good.
Yeah, he was obsessed with this with the daughter of Troy, and he gave her the gift of prophecy, and she was his priestess, but she refused. He wanted to lay with her because it said she was like the so beautiful and was equal to Helena, and
Wow.
she said, "No, I don't. I'm because it said that the Apollo priestesses had to be chaste, and she's like, I'm not going to go against my word." And he ended up cursing her, gave her the sight, but gave her the curse of no one believing her. And
Mm.
so nobody believed her when it said that, that they were going to come and bring the Trojan horse, and all of that happened, and then the death. Anyways, I won't go into all that. But yeah, so and Apollo has a record. Apollo has a record of making oracles and then demanding, things of them. And so yeah, so there's that relation there with the Pythia, and with specifically we think about again that connection I spoke to earlier with the serpents, pythons being in relation to the earth. And so originally Pythia, or the oracles of Delphi, were mouthpieces or oracles for Gaia, for earth.
Mm.
And eventually became to prophesize more for Apollo and all that. So
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah,
Hmm.
right. As you're talking, I'm like seeing, because I'm in Peru in South America,
Hmm.
and I'm seeing like the anaconda and
Yeah.
grandmother. Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. What's the next question? I'm actually curious to know, like, how you started connecting with Lilith, or just any story of how Lilith supported you in
Mm.
ship, because I just love hearing
Yeah,
stories.
sure. So I like to say, my mom has been a Lilith priestess for a long time.
Your mom.
My mom, so we actually grew up Jehovah's Witness, and she was the one who got us out of the church because she really saw the hypocrisies. And growing up Jehovah's Witness, where we grow up with the story that I shared earlier with Adam and Eve and the falling of the feminine, and just how women are seen as, the issue, right? And then she was just really feeling the hypocrisy and the suppression, and so she took us out. And my mom's been on her own journey with reclamation of her own gifts as an oracle, and so she actually woke up quicker before me, which she's my mother, of course. And so I would say she's she's fully, I feel like it came into my field maybe 6 years ago, around the same time that all the other ones started coming in, like really quickly, learning about the goddess. And I'm such a student, so when I have a desire to learn about anything, I'll read lots of books and just kind of do that for a while and put things into practice. And yeah, I love sharing things that I love. And so, but I would say I recently had my Lilith return. So she transits each sign for 9 months at a time. And
Mm.
so if we think about 9 months, how she represents this whole gestational process, which is really cool too. And so she was in Libra for a while in my own going through my own Lilith return just recently, and she just came into Scorpio a few months back. And so I feel like that was even a bigger activation for me at this time. I've been studying with the Academy of Oracle Arts for
Mm.
the last 3 years, and I was initiated as a pillar for Lilith
Mm.
to be a torch for her for the academy. And so I feel like through that my devotion to her has really grown even stronger, and just wanting to reclaim her story and to share it right. And so it's been a process. And then when we moved here to Michigan, I of course have a crab apple tree outside my office here. And so I gave my moon blood to it,
Wow.
and as an offering to her, but also to the land here, and in prayer for fertility. And I wasn't really necessarily asking for fertility of life for a child. I was just speaking to the energy of fertility in all the ways. And I ended up getting pregnant the month after. And so my daughter, although I named her Rose after the Rose lineage, she is very much my daughter of Lilith.
Creepy.
She's
Wow.
my Lilith baby. And often it's so interesting. Lilith is connected to being a killer of babies and mothers during childbirth. And so I like to say, well, she actually protected us and was a
Mhm.
guardian. And so I have that as my own story and reclamation of, for her. And so that's a really profound experience I've had with her, starting with the whole passing of the torch, and then being gifted my rose at the age of 35, where I thought I was probably done, although I was open to it.
Mhm.
But she came through moving here, and now we're moving back to Arizona. So we like to say we just came here to
Like a
conceive and receive a rose, and
in
then move back home to our new
Sedona, or
land. Most likely not Sedona, because I do love to be near my community, which is more central to Phoenix,
Mhm.
in that area. Hmm.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, I have my last question. So,
Mhm.
how does a priestess balance her mission with also being a mother with children or being in a relationship? Because I know you have the embodiment of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that
Like
question. I
the
think
independence and sovereignty of Lilith. Yeah.
sure. Yeah. It's not easy. And then at times it is, I like we were talking about earlier on this call, my husband is so supportive of my path. It wasn't always like that. I had to go through my own moments, of really reclaiming this path, embodying it, and it being triggering to him at first. But he after a while has really realized that this is my path, and he's like I like to say he's my Knights Templar. He's my Yeshua to my Magdalene. He's just very,
I fucking love that. You need to
you
make a
know,
meme of this.
yeah,
In my Yeshua to the
yeah.
Magdalene.
Yeah, he's a woodworker, he's has his own like traits of the feminine, not the feminine, the masculine archetype of just healed in his own, but he's gone through his own journey of initiation. And that's the path of the priestess, especially when you're in union with a man or not. Maybe it's a, and I mean, sometimes as priestesses, we're not meant to be in union. A lot of the times, actually, if we look historically, priestesses were virgins, but not virgins to chastity. It was more of like sovereign and in devotion to their ministry. And I think of that sometimes because I was even looking at my own chart. I do have the possibility and the capability to be a virgin because I can go into my own like vision and focus of my work because I love it so much and my ministry, but I am always called back to my family,
Mm,
and I know that's a big part of my path
hmm.
this lifetime, having my children, having my partner who is in full devotion to me and to my work. It grounds me and brings me back to just being Cassandra, who loves to be a woman and just to be a mom. And then there's the times where I deeply desire to be on pilgrimage and just to be immersed in the mysteries and
Yeah,
in connection with the goddess and doing my work.
yeah.
And he's supportive of that. And so I may go, but I always come back, and there's always this energy of just excitement to return home. And my children miss me. I miss them. I miss my husband. I'm even more just happy and turned on, and
Yeah.
because he's so supportive,
Yeah.
and you miss being away from each other. So there's that longing and desire there to come back to be together. And so, I feel what really supports me too is being in tune with my menstrual cycle is huge because it allows me to create my life around it where I understand why I'm feeling maybe tired and not able to show up.
Mhm.
Like I even asked you, can we reschedule? I'm like, I just got my bleed and I'm like 2 weeks late, and it came with like a brick, like bam. And so I knew I wasn't going to be able to just be like my usual. Maybe I would have gave some good,
No,
of
I
course I would have because I'm
that.
in my
We're
moon time.
priestesses. It's like, yes, go be in
Yeah.
your room cave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could have showed up and it would have been good too, but I knew I just wanted to rest. So thank you for honoring that. And so yeah, that's a big part of that is as a mother being in tune with my cycle. My family know about it. My children know that I'm bleeding when I'm bleeding or when I have more energy. And so it is, sometimes sacrificing time away from my family, but it's not just like for my ego, it's in devotion to
Your
something
mission.
great, my mission and something greater to helping others.
Hmm.
And we receive the gifts from that. Like my husband receives the gifts from that, not just from me, but from abundance in different forms. And so it looks different for each woman, but for me, that's how it's been, and I'm so grateful. Yeah.
So grateful for you and for sharing that because you're illuminating the path that we can be
Mhm.
priestess and be mother also. Because that's also
Yeah.
this desire is to be a mama. And I'm
Yep.
sure many of the women watching this are drawn to the oracle arts and the mysteries and
Yeah.
it's so beautiful, like to know that you can go on your pilgrimage and then come back home. And I
Yeah.
feel like yeah, that's where we're at now in um, this time. Because
Yeah.
I'm sure we've been priestesses in temples in the past, and
Oh, for sure.
I
And
definitely need
you
you.
know what yeah, and you know what I think is happening too is because of that,
Mhm.
maybe in past lives we were sovereign virgins to our ministry, but now in this time right now, we need more of us. So we
Mhm.
need to conceive them to pass the lineage to the daughters to create more of us.
We have one ritual that we know of now.
You know. And so we're really, building our, our little lineages of priestesshood around the world. And so maybe thousands of years ago, where women were more in devotion to their ministry, are now in devotion to both. And so it gets to look different. And that's what we're doing, right? Yes, let's look into history, but let's do things differently. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be exactly the same. And we need to build our ancient future, not necessarily have to live how it was before, but how can we, um, serve, build it in a way that it serves to these times. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's bringing a lot of clarity of the situation that I'm in right now, and I can see why. I'm like, why am I so resistant to lean into
Yeah.
something beautiful? And it's probably because of that, like
Hmm.
priestess rules and regulations from the past. Like
For sure.
my body, my cells are just like, wait, no, but it's not. Yeah, I'm not in the past. So thank
Hmm.
you.
My pleasure. So good to talk to you.
This was such a beautiful conversation. We'll definitely be linking all of your beautiful magic. And yeah,
Thank
I'll
you.
let you get back to your baby. So,
Oh,
thank
thank you,
you,
love.
Papa.
So much love to you. Thank you, everyone.